Let's take a deeper look at some of the other awards from the Black College Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Then FAMU and North Carolina A&T make some big-time additions to their roster and coaching staff. Oh yeah, it's Locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked on HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked on HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And now, of course, I'm Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked on HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And I want to talk about the Black College Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony. See, on the previous episode, we discussed everybody who was inducted. There were 7 members that were inducted, but I want to take a look into the future because that's something that they did. They took a look into the present and the future of the HBCU football brand. And I think that it's important that we do it because, well, before I get into that, right? Before we get deep into it, let's remind those who either maybe forgot since Monday's episode or weren't able to catch Monday's episode. If you weren't able to do that, you should definitely go back and look at it because it was a great episode. I had a lot of fun doing that one. But these are the 7 members of the Black College Football HBC or Black College Football Hall of Fame. And that's Ben Coates, Donald Driver, Big Train Moody, Roscoe Nance, Nate Newton, Billy Nix, and then, of course, Sammy White out of Grambling. That wraps up your 2022 class. But like I said, we're focusing on the future. And that's in no way disrespect to them. It's just that on Monday, we reflected on the induction ceremony, talked about them, and gave them their moment. But it's also time to acknowledge those who are professional football players currently from HBCU schools. And then also HBCU players who are holding down the fort right now as we speak. And the reason that's important to me is because so often when I hear people promoting HBCU players and you can make it from HBCU and things of that nature, I always hear the Hall of Famers. That's why I hear, not just the College Football Hall of Famers, but the NFL Hall of Famers. And I get it because the Hall of Fame is the greatest individual achievement that you can get in sports, in my opinion. If you have a Hall of Fame to be immortalized in for your sport, there is nothing greater than that, in my opinion, right? So I understand why you would throw out the Walter Paytons of the world. I get it. But at the same time, I think that to some, not to many, but to some, it may seem as if you're just reclining back on the success of the people 50 years ago, right? People who are before my time. I'm a young kid. Let's imagine this. I'm a 20-year-old kid, right? I'm in my 20s, excuse me, right? Let's say that. I think we need to start pointing out the players that people my age can identify with. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you look at Donald Driver. Donald Driver played when I was younger, and this is no slight to him. I don't even hear the Donald Drivers be mentioned like that. I don't hear the Steve McNairs be mentioned like that. I don't hear those players. Typically, when I hear it, it's the players who were from older generations, and they did phenomenal. And you should promote them. Like I said about the MEAC, when talking about Howard, you're always going to push your top people to the front, and Hall of Famers are 100% your best people. But I think that we need to give some current examples because they exist. When you give those examples from a long time ago, sometimes it might not look like it exists. So I want to hear about the Darius Leonards. That's the first person I'm bringing up. I want to hear about the Teron Armsteads. That's the next person I'm bringing up. Darius Leonard is one of the best linebackers in the league. Teron Armstead, one of the best left tackles in the league. You got Javon Hargrave. He's out there playing well. I think he's in Philadelphia now. Started off in Pittsburgh, right? Tariq Cohen with a lightning rod before his injuries. These are players that came from HBCUs that you could easily bring up. And I'm not saying that nobody speaks about them. I just feel as if those are the first people that I feel like we should point out because they're current. They are not Hall of Famers. They're not the foundation. But hey, you may not be the foundation, but the second story is pretty important too, right? right? In a two-story house, the second story is important. You got to build it on top of the first story. But hey, you go into a skyscraper, all the floors above the ground level are important, right? You want to showcase those. And a lot of times, you're not looking at the bottom unless you're looking at the door. You're looking at what's at the top. So let's treat these players who are currently showing out and went to an HBCU the same respect that we give the legends who built the foundation and created some of the greatness. That's why I think that this was so important, because they did that. They highlighted a player who is currently in the league, and I thought that was important, right? So you get to Grover Stewart, who was recognized as the NFLPA Black College Football Player of the Year. This is only for current players, right? He's been in the league for a little bit, and he's been a constant on the Indianapolis Colts front, and he's been a disruptor. This last season, he had 46 tackles, a sack, a forced fumble, and then he did all of that from the defensive tackle position. He's had more, like he's been in the league for like, I think 5 years, right? In these last 3, you've seen him be very consistent. That's great. That's professional level. I just gave a whole rant about the professional level and having to showcase the players who are there. But let's not forget that we're looking at the players who are still playing at HBCUs as well, or at least just came off of an HBCU season, like Aqeel Glass, who is obviously graduated. But let's start off with some of the other awards. And these are no-brainers. Like, these awards that they gave out aren't groundbreaking awards. It's kind of understandable who's going to be. Coach of the Year, Deion Sanders. See, we harp so much about Deion Sanders and what he's done off the field and things that weren't exactly just the wins and losses side of things. But none of that happens without the success. They do great attendance numbers. And Jackson State is a phenomenal fan base. They are passionate and they are loyal. So I don't want to make it seem like the Tigers are fair weather fans. But you don't think winning is going to make that go up? Attendance is always going to go up when you win. And that's not even a slight. Winning teams typically have better attendance than losing teams. Travis Hunter just came to Jackson State. And with all the admiration and love and idolizing Deion Sanders that he did as a kid, you don't think it was significantly easier to sell him on a team that was dominant? Imagine loving Deion Sanders, but Deion Sanders has to sell you on a rebuild as the number 1 recruit in the nation. All of these things are made better by winning, or made easier by winning. And that's what he was able to do. He absolutely dominated nearly everybody that was in front of him. And we'll get to that at the end. But you have the offensive and defensive player of the year. It's Aqeel Glass and Isaiah Land. Those are the only 2 players. I don't want to say only 2. Those are 2 players who were no-brainers. I mean, Isaiah Land was the Buck Buchanan Award winner for the best defender in all of FCS football. Not just SWAC, not just MEAC, not just HBCU. All of FCS football, he was ranked as the best guy this year. So, of course, he's going to get that defensive player of the year, right? You're looking at Aqeel Glass. He had top 10 in multiple statistics in the FCS. Once again, not just the SWAC, not just the MEAC, not just HBCUs. We're talking about the whole FCS. It was clear that he was going to be the offensive player of the year. And then you have the team of the year, the national champions, and that's your South Carolina State Bulldogs. They were labeled the Black College Football Hall of Fame national champions. And hey, man, they won the MEAC. They had a huge upset in the Celebration Bowl over Jackson State. And I think almost the upset wasn't just the fact that they beat Jackson State. It was the fact of how they beat Jackson State. They put a whooping on them. Like, they beat Jackson State by 21 points. We have to remember, that was only their second loss of the season. But the previous loss was the University of Louisiana and Monroe, and that was 5 points. You beat Jackson State by 21. A FBS team snuck past them, just barely scooted past them with a 5-point victory, 12-7. You came in and beat them by 21 points. So, yeah, Coach Buddy, he led the national champions, and they deserve that. So, like I said, all of these awards, essentially no-brainers. But I thought it was important to recognize not only the legends, because they did build a foundation, but like I said, in a house, in a building, the foundation is important, but you also have to focus on building up. All of those other things are important as well. And I love showcasing our professional players who came from HBCUs. And I love showcasing our HBCU players who are currently in college. I thought it was very important that on a day when we recognize the legends, we also recognize the future and what HBCU football can become. Great job by the Black College Football Hall of Fame. I thought it was a very important move. Going forward, we're going to be talking about FAMU adding a bit of size to the women's basketball roster. I can't wait to talk about this player because I think she is really going to shake things up for the FAMU Rattlers. But before we get into that, I would love to tell you about BetOnline because BetOnline is the best place for all of your wagering needs. You want to put your money down on anything, put your money down on whatever you want. Just make sure you're putting it down by using BetOnline. The MVP odds for the NBA next season. I told you, this is a cycle. How many times I got to tell you this is a cycle? It's just keep going, keep going, keep going. When you think the first cycle is done, it's done. But the next cycle is right around the corner. And now we're talking about MVP odds. You got Jokic. No, actually, you got Embiid and Doncic leading. Then you got Jokic, KD. These are the players. Giannis. Who you got winning? Maybe a long shot. I didn't hear Steph Curry in there. So go put your money down on some of your NBA, MVP futures, your NFL futures, things of that sort. And if that's not your gig, just do it on esports or your favorite Vegas casino games. It doesn't matter because they're that versatile. In addition to being the fastest and easiest way to wage on all of your favorite sports, Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, so keep on rolling on today's episode of Locked on HBCU. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Every day I do appreciate it. In one live draft show for the NBA is not enough for Locked on. The entire NBA channel is going live on NBA draft night. So if you want to follow the New Orleans Pelicans, your best or favorite NBA team, make sure you subscribe now to their Locked On YouTube channel so you get notified when they go live on draft night. But seriously, go check out Nola Jake Madison is doing a phenomenal job covering the Pelicans. And today's word of the day is prescience. And that means the ability to see or anticipate what will or might happen in the future. And I want to talk about FAMU women's basketball. They are adding Skylar Baltezegar, and she has officially signed after being committed for about 2 months now at this point. She's officially a FAMU Rattler, and she's bringing a bit of size in. She comes from Charleston Southern in the Big South, and coming from over there, she was actually pretty good. You know, it's not one of those things where you're getting a player who was just casted off, seemed to not have, or I wasn't getting any play time. No, she actually got a good amount of play time and took advantage of it when she was playing for Charleston Southern. I guess maybe she just wanted to come back to her home state. She's a Florida girl. Maybe she just wanted to come back and play for FAMU. I don't know. But I do know that she's coming in and she's bringing a good amount of size. And I bring that up 2 times because the size is probably the first thing that you'll notice. She immediately becomes the tallest girl on the team at 6'2". She's tied with one other person, but you're gonna notice it. She's 6'2". She step on the court. She's the tallest person out there most times, right? In that forward lineup that they have, that front court is pretty tall. They have 3 players, including Skylar, that are above 6 feet. You're looking at a situation where they don't have a lot of experience as far as that position. They other than Stacia Allen, you're looking at a situation where a lot of these players are either young. One of the players hadn't played in 2 years. One's a grad student coming from Alabama. It's just not much experience within this. I think it's already setting up for Baltezegar to be able to take advantage of the lack of experience. And then also just take advantage of the fact that everybody is listed as a forward. I don't know if that's just because that's how FAMU prefers to list them. But when she was at Charleston Southern, Baltezegar was listed as a forward/center. So you can probably have Stacia Allen at your 4, and you're looking at Baltezegar at your 5. But greater than just the physical attributes, greater than just, hey, she's 6'2", she's a center, other than just the opportunistic side of things, I also think her skill set is really good. Like I was watching her, and I believe that she's somebody who you pair with Dylan Horton, who has a guard, smaller. You bring her in. I think this could really work offensively. I'm gonna stick at Baltezegar's offense and just kind of hone in on that in this topic, in this segment. But you have Horton's coming back, who was dynamic last year. She was a really good player last year. Man, she was fun to watch anytime I got a chance to watch her play. Now you're going to add a big to that. And I always love the big and the front court, back court, both having a person in there that can really play. I don't want to say the big and the small, right? That sounds a little, off the rails, but that's going to be a big front court for the Rattlers, and assuming that she's going to play, because I think there's an opportunity. I won't pretend to have, the prescience to be able to say, hey, She's for sure going to play, but I think that her size and the position that she's played at Charleston Southern lines up for her to be able to immediately slide into that 5 role. So with that being said, what will she do when she gets on the court? And like I said, we're focusing on her offense. Offensively, I think she's versatile. I like her skill set because when she's a post player. She's a post player. And when she has her back to the rim, she either be posted up on the left of the basket, right of the basket. Doesn't matter. Both ways is a two-way go. She can finish with her right hand, finish with her left hand. She can finish to the side of the basket, in front of the basket. She has so much. But other than just that, right? Before you can get there, she can catch the ball out on the wing. Maybe not past the three-point line. Let me not go that far. But she can take it a little bit inside the three-point line and drive. She can put the ball on the floor. It's not a situation where you just have to get her in the paint and you hope, hey, make a move. No, you can pass the ball a little bit outside of the paint. She can put the ball on the floor, get to her spot, and she has a good amount of footwork. She can finish through traffic. She can finish with agility. You've seen her have the pivot work. I've seen her turn this one girl around. I wish I remember what game it was, but it was extremely fun to watch because when you see her get the ball, you don't know what's coming. You don't know if she's going to have her back to the basket, post up here, and she's always going to spin towards the baseline. She might not. She might not spin to the baseline and go for the layup. She might spin away from the baseline and just pop it over you. And I like that because she has range all the way to the elbow. She's not stepping out for threes. And I don't need that. I don't need all my bigs to shoot threes. I don't need every player on the court to be able to shoot threes. I don't. Some bigs are bigs, and that's her. She didn't take a singular three last year. And guess what? Fine with that. Ain't no problem to me. But what she did well, she did well. She comes in, whether that's, like I said, driving to the hole, whether that's turning around, pop shooting, whether that's just taking the ball and shooting it over the top of the defender from about the elbow. She's shown herself to be able to do all of that and more as far as cutting, and she understands spacing. It's a great fit, and I can't wait to see how she'll fit with Dylan Horton. I don't want to say I love it. I ain't seen it yet, but I cannot wait to see how she fits there because I think that that's a pairing that could really make some damage happen, or could really, make some damage happen in the SWAC this year. We'll be looking forward to it and seeing what comes from it. But Skylar Baltezegar right now appears to be a pretty good signing for the FAMU Rattlers on the women's basketball side. A big who can shoot all the way to the elbow and can get her own shot when she has the ball in her hand. I like it. I'm here for it, right? Skylar Baltezegar, FAMU Rattler. We're going to be talking about some of the North Carolina A&T additions. They're not the only one that made additions out there in Florida. They did the same in North Carolina in CAT, and they made some additions on the defensive side of the ball at the coaching staff. I'm going to take a look at what their defense looked like last year, what it could look like going into a new conference next year, and then also take a little bit of a look at the resume of the two coaches that they added. I was wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU. I'd be remiss if I did not mention that Skylar Baltezegar was also a two-time freshman of the week in the Big South. One of those players that people saying, oh, we might have to watch out for her going forward, in addition to having her skill set, right? So I want to mention the accolades as well as the skill set. Now, going forward, I want to talk about North Carolina A&T. Because North Carolina A&T has brought in some coaches to bolster that defense. But first, we need to take a look at how the defense performed. And they're going into a new conference. So we're going to do a little bit of projection. So work with me. Not all of this is going to be concrete. This is a new conference, new season, new talent. Everything is not rolling over. It's not okay, let's see what we did in the Big South last year, and let's build on that in the Big South this year. No, you're switching conferences. In a sense, you're really opening a new chapter. The Big South chapter is over. It's you can learn some lessons from it, of course, but everything is not going to be applicable in this new chapter, and that is the CAA. New conference, new season, second conference in 2 years. Let's get into it. But before we do that, let's look into what did the defense look like in the Big South in 2021, right? So in 2021, you're looking at the Aggies defense that allowed 346.5 yards per game, 25.9 points per game. They are numbers just there. But when you put them in context, they are one of the best defenses in that conference in 2021. Third in points per game, third in points per game, second in yards per game. That's a top 3 defense. You'll take that. If in your first year in any conference, really, you take that any year. No matter if it's your first year, your 5th year, your 7th year, does not matter. You will take being third in points, second in yards, any season, anytime. Give me that defensive performance. I'll take that. I will take that defensive performance, right? So when you're looking at how they perform there, I want to compare the Big South and the CAA. There's limited how much you can take away. There's limited takeaway. And the difficult part is that you can't concretely really say what's going to happen in the CAA last year. You ain't seen them against half of these teams. You don't know. I mean, every year comes with a little bit of unpredictability, yes, but you don't know how they're going to perform because you've never seen it. You have never seen it. Not even like a taste of it, really. That's the thing. Usually you need a little bit of a taste to get the projection completely right. But let's get into these two conferences, comparing them. So when you're looking at the top 5 scoring offenses, 3 of them come from the Big South. Top 5 scoring defenses, 4 of them come from the CAA. 4 of the top yardage-wise offenses come from the Big South, and 4 of the top defenses come from the CAA. So what you're really seeing is the CAA is a better defensive conference. The Big South is a better offensive conference. Now, how does that work? Are the offenses so good that the defense look worse? Are the defense so good that the offense look worse? I don't know. But what I do know is that I can transplant the North Carolina A&T Big South numbers into the CAA and just see how they turn out. I'm going to choose the optimistic route of saying that, hey, the defenses the offenses just aren't as good in the CAA. I don't know, right? Because it would take a lot of studying to really get into it. Because we only took the top level of the offenses and defenses in each conference to really make that statement concretely. And no, you'd have to watch consistent film of both conferences pretty much all the time. And you would also have to say, hey, I'm not just going to take the top 3 or the top 4. I'm going to take 1 through 12, 1 through 8. I'm going to take every single team and just see who you're facing. We're not doing all of that on this one, right? Because we're not studying the CAA year in and year out. But let's see, if you were to put their numbers into the CAA at 346.5 allowed per game yardage and 25.9 points per game, they would rank 8th in scoring and 7th in yards. That's not too hot. But if we're going with the idea that the offenses are not as good in the CAA, then I'm going to take those numbers to go up a little bit. And you don't even have to deal with James Madison because they're going to the Sun Belt. With James Madison going to the Sun Belt, the unequivocally best offense in the CAA, it gets so much easier. Imagine you're going into a new conference that the offenses aren't as great. And if we're being honest, if we take out the Aggies, if we take out James Madison, I think the top 5 yardage offenses are now in the CA or in the Big South. So that's all of them. And it's 4 out of 5 on the scoring side. So you're really taking a big hit. I think they average like 38 points per game. The next team was 30. They averaged like over 400 yards. Nobody else. They were like 430 or something like that. No other team was close. Either at 410 or 430. But they were the only 400 plus yard offense in the conference. Things should get significantly easier for all defenses, not just North Carolina A&T, but all defenses in that CAA conference. So that's what you're looking at as far as defenders or defensive performance if you just transplant it. And you're going to take the optimistic curve and say things are going to go up because the offenses are easier to go against in that conference. Fingers crossed, we're going to take the optimistic route. If you don't want to be optimistic, yeah, we're going to be optimistic today. Don't leave no negative comments. We're going to go with the good route and we're going to go positive. But one thing that they were not able to do a lot on defense is they weren't able to get a lot of turnovers. They just did not get a lot of interceptions. And that's where the defensive back coach comes in because the defensive line was pretty consistent. They had the most sacks. So it's just by staying constant with them, right? So when you're looking at Keith Willis, who came in with Coach Washington into the NFL, you're just about trying to stay confident on the defensive line or stay constant on the defensive line. But when you look at Coach Jason, Jason Markinos, he's coaching up the secondary, and you want to get some playmaking. They were very consistent as far as stopping the pass. They were able to not really have to run into a situation where they're just getting lit up through the air. You want that. There is nothing wrong. Not only is there nothing wrong with consistency in playing well, you want it. Nobody wants playmaker where it's highly volatile, where it's high risk, high reward. I don't want that. That's not my preference. I'd prefer to have really constant play and be able to make consistent playmaking. Well, luckily, Coach Markinos came from Kent State, where they were top 10 in the FBS country in interceptions. Well, look at there. You have a defense that struggles with playmaking, getting interceptions. You bring in a defensive back coach who has just recently on the FBS level shown that he knows how to get his defenders to take the ball away. Bingo. Exactly what I needed. Exactly what I needed. That's why I think these coaches are good. It's just about Coach Willis staying constant, Coach Markinos saying, hey, I'm going to apply the techniques that I had at Kent State to North Carolina A&T, and maybe we can upgrade from 7 interceptions, which was tied for second worst in the Big South, and get it up to 12. I'm just going to throw 12 out there. Get an extra 5. That's my number. So we're going to try to get an extra 5 interceptions. Yeah, now we're making plays, and we're going to stay constant because we have our technique and we have our fundamentals down. Sound like it worked to me. What about you? What you think? Go ahead and leave a comment below and let me know what you think. In addition to making us your first listen of the day, every day we'll be back for Feature Friday. And our Feature Friday, we'll be talking about Randolph Ross, who unfortunately did go to the University of Tennessee with his father. That was not a surprise. However, I do want to just talk about everything that he accomplished for the Aggies because he did quite a bit and he deserves to, get a proper farewell. So on Feature Friday, we'll be giving a proper farewell. Let's call it Farewell Friday. There we go. Farewell Friday, because 3 F's is too much of a tongue twister for me to try to say. Farewell Friday to Randolph Ross Jr. this week on Locked On HBCU. Now, for your second listen of the day, make sure you're checking out the NBA mock draft because you're going to have Rafael Barlow again. You got the ultimate mock draft. June 16th was the first pick. Now you have June 23rd. You're going to have the actual draft. Make sure you're catching up with everything that you need for the NBA draft season, the same way that we did for the NFL draft. And in the meantime, in between time, if you're looking for me, you can find me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.